The useful idiots for Islamic extremists were out on the streets of London today. Palestine Action is the group responsible for this attack on a British base. At the time of reporting, there have still been no arrests. That's a complete joke. And despite the Metropolitan Police releasing this statement saying that Palestine Action are a bad group that should be prescribed as terrorists, the protest today was allowed to go ahead, and there were numerous arrests. There was even someone dressed up as a concentration camp victim wandering around the streets. I mean, it's disgusting, isn't it? These people are idiots. And if you don't believe me, we have just seen this from the Middle East. Iran trying to bomb US bases in Qatar, where reportedly some British fighter jets are based. And here, on Britain's streets, we've got this. Someone walking around with a sign saying, "Be on the right side of history," and a giant picture of the Ayatollah. We had people taking their young children to this Palestine Action protest today. Jeremy Corbyn, the man that Sir Keir Starmer tried to get elected not once but twice, said that basically, it would be disgraceful to class Palestine Action as terrorists, all of this stuff. But Labour ministers cannot give a straight answer about whether or not the government backs America's strikes on Iran.
It's a simple one, Minister. Are we for or against the American activity on the weekend? For or against?
Well, the American activity has now happened. They've taken those steps to deal with the threat. And what we have, as a country, what we have been focused on over the past few weeks... You don't know
whether we're supportive, whether we support or oppose it. Am I hearing correctly that the Armed Forces Minister... What we're focusing on is the diplomatic solution that resolves this crisis. I just want to clarify that the Armed Forces Minister for His Majesty's government doesn't know whether he supports or opposes American activity on the weekend, our supposedly closest ally, and you don't have a view.
Yeah. And the fact is, a war in the Middle East, which seems increasingly likely, will mean war on the streets of Britain. Iranians are among the top nationalities of illegal immigrants coming across by small boat. Do you not think that the Iranian regime might have been exploiting a loophole there? For years, we have allowed a place called the Islamic Centre of England to operate in Maida Vale in London. Now, its director is reportedly appointed directly by Ayatollah Khomeini, Iran's supreme leader. I mean, that can just operate with impunity in our capital city. They, of course, are at pains to stress that they are just a religious and cultural centre and there is nothing untoward happening there. There was a protest outside the Iranian embassy on Friday and this happened. This got startlingly little press coverage, apart from right here at GB News. The Ayatollah's goons rocked up and just allegedly attacked a load of people. So when you see things like this from the Middle East... it all seems very far away. But I am telling you, the enemy is already here. We let them in. And they are backed up by a load of idiotic lefties who turn up to protest like this.
On you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
So a spokesman for the Islamic Centre for England previously said the centre was a purely religious and cultural organisation which provides various services to local communities. The spokesperson added, "It is an independent charity regulated by British law which is totally funded by the local beneficiaries. The majority of the trustees, donors and attendees are British citizens. Indeed, this charity has nothing to do with politics, while we strongly believe that the politically motivated lobbies are trying to drag the charity into their political disputes." Well, there we go. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening, shall we? We have the former chairman of the Tory party, Sir J. Berry, journalist Emily Sheffield, and another journalist, Benjamin Butterworth, as well. Thank you very, very much. Sir J, when you see things like the Palestine Action protests on the streets of Britain today, I can't help but wonder whether or not the enemy's already here.
Well, look, I think The first thing to say is we reap what we sow. The police lost control of the streets to some extent in London months ago. We have had week after week of these pro-Palestinian protests. They've been allowed to happen by the Mayor of London. The Metropolitan Police has allowed them to go ahead. We've had very soft touch policing of them. And suddenly today, oh no, they shouldn't be going ahead. Well, it is a course of behaviour that has emboldened these people to come out and campaign for hateful ideologies on the streets of London. That is wrong. The second point is, we do not know. It's all very well to say they're here. Frankly, you might be right. We simply don't know. We have 50,000, there or thereabouts, people a year arriving in this country. We're told that most of them are women, children and doctors who want to work in the NHS. It's not. Look at the boats. These are all young, fighting-age men. They throw away their papers. Of course they could be sent here by the Iranian state. We have to get serious about this threat within our United Kingdom.
Yeah, and I don't know if we might be able to bring back up that picture of the choose the right side of history and the picture of the Ayatollah that they brought there. I'm hoping you might be able to bring that back up on the screen. But Emily, I look at this, and it's one thing having actual card-carrying Islamist lunatics, right? It's another thing that there seems to be a load of people from the left who just go into bat for them.
I find it extraordinary. I don't even know whether they're looking at history. You don't have to agree with everything that Israel has done, but it doesn't mean you take a completely sort of loony view of some pretty dark people. And I do honestly think there's a lot of people turning up. They haven't read history. They haven't even done the bare research into what Iran has been backing. Hamas, Hezbollah, what's going on with the Houthis. The fact that they're aligned with China and Russia. I mean, I honestly, sometimes the people who go on these marches, you just want to say, do you know what you're talking about? It is one thing to say, yes, I do not agree with what Israel has done with the settlers. I do not agree with what the settlers have done. They've shot and murdered innocent people. We do not agree with lots of innocent people being killed in Gaza. But who is behind that action? Who is behind October the 7th? Iran, backing Hamas. And they wanted this war. They wanted their own people slaughtered because that's all they care about, martyrdom and getting their point across. And Iran was just upset about what was happening in the Middle East and thought they were losing their place in that area.
Yeah, I mean, Benjamin, what do you make of the fact that we've got a standing army of idiotic left-wingers who are out on the street essentially taking the side of, I would argue, not just Hamas, but also the Ayatollah?
Well, I think it's right to say many of them don't have a clue what they're talking about. Some of them, though, really understand what they're talking about, and those are the dangerous ones that we should be afraid of. About 2 years ago, the head of MI5 said there were 20 Iran-linked assassination attempts on British soil. Yep. And I spent about 6 months investigating and managed to track down about 5 of those people, which included an Iranian man that lived in Covent Garden. And when he walked out of his flat, Iranian agents tried to kidnap him in the back of a van in central London. Mm-hmm. It included a Jewish man who was told he couldn't walk with his own kids in a park in outer London because there was a threat to kidnap his grandchildren. It included a woman, Anna Diamond, she was public, who had been arrested and put in the same jail as Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. And she was left with lifelong damage to her body, so was constantly in hospital in South London. And she got calls repeatedly that they were following her into the NHS hospital and were going to pose as a nurse and murder her through an injection. All of these cases went to the police. All of these people got police protection, but not one prosecution. And so what's absurd about today is that prescribing Palestine Action is probably the right thing to do because they are acting like terrorists when they attack our security. Yeah. But the IRGC itself has not been prescribed in this country as a terrorist organisation, and that shows how weak we are. And that's it. And let's now just have a look, Jake, at what our Labour government has been doing here, because they've been pontificating about whether or not they are on the side of the US for bombing Iran. We've had no arrests
when it comes to the Bryce Norton attack, as far as I'm aware. No one's been arrested for that. If that had happened in America, they'd have just been shot instantly. Here, we've apparently got no idea who they are, so they can just be out and about. We've got Labour ministers going on today, making fools of themselves, talking about whether or not they're on the side of the US, etc., etc. Yeah, we've got an Iranian sleeper cells. MI5 keep warning us that are right here in the UK. I don't think we've seen an increased raise of the terror threat here in Britain. Palestine Action on the streets. But what's going on? We're a laughingstock, aren't we?
What GB News viewers can see on their screen there, destroying the engines of our aircraft that are used to refuel our fighter jets. That is an act of terrorism. That is why this group should be prescribed, if for no other reason. They are destroying British military infrastructure.
£25 million worth.
25 million quid at a time when we are under threat of war, and those planes will not be able to take off for months to support British fighter jets. It might be in the skies over the north of England or any other part of England, seeing off the Russians. That is an act of terrorism, and those people should be arrested and sent to prison for a very long time. And the second thing I would say, you're right, Benjamin, the government hasn't prescribed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard at IRGC, but nor did the Conservative government.
Yeah.
We were very, very slow about this. This is a real threat here on British shores. The Conservative government, in the 14 years it was in power, should have done more.
Exactly. I mean, how do you feel about it? We're seeing all this kicking off in the Middle East now. We'll bring you only breaking news as and when we get it this evening, of course, if bombs start flying back and forth again. But, we have got sleeper cells here in Britain. This is what I'm seriously worried about, that because of whatever reaction this Labour government might eventually decide to take, right, we are going to feel it here. Ordinary British citizens are going to feel it because we've let terrorists in.
Can I just quickly make two points here, absolutely connected to what you're saying? One is, Labour are hoping they're not going to have to come down on any one side, because they don't want to. They don't want to have to admit to lots of their Labour supporters that we're going to come down on the side of not Trump, but Israel. That's how they're worried that will be interpreted. Of course we're going to back America. What would we do if we don't have America to protect us? Second point, connected, is what happened at Bryce Norton, I'm afraid, is I don't agree with everything that Trump does, but one thing he has been absolutely right about and is we have not looked after our armed forces. Yeah. Europe has not looked after its armed forces. We have been riding on the coattails of America, and Trump was absolutely right. And it's good to hear that Germany has admitted, hasn't it, that it's going to beef up its military spending. We've said we're going to beef up our military spending because the fact that they were able to get into those planes, it just shows how unseriously we take our armed forces. We can't even protect our planes.
Yeah, OK. I'll just put pains to say. So Palestine Action would say that their aims are to end the participation in what they believe is a genocide. They say they are not promoting Islamic extremism. A very, very quick word from you on that, Benjamin.
Well, the genocide is the stated aim of the IRGC. It's to wipe out Israel, wipe out every Jew and wipe out America. And it's 5 days since I was evacuated from Israel. And let me tell you, I met gay Palestinians that had been given refugee status in Israel. The only place a gay Palestinian gets rights is Israel. And so these people who claim to be on the left are nothing of the sort. They are empowering the most dangerous people on our planet.
I mean, just on that as well, I have what I call my Iranian focus group, OK, who live quite near me. And they are people who either directly fled the Ayatollah years ago or are the relatives of people who fled the Ayatollah years ago. They are under no illusions about exactly what that regime is, and they are angry that Britain has let the people in that they actually fled from. And I think that's... You don't hear enough about that on the media, I think. But anyway, we're going to have to whiz ourselves off.